Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about A Fate So Cold by Amanda Foody and C.L. Herman. A Fate So Cold releases on November 4th. This is a young adult fantasy wand-based magic series. And I imagine this will end up being a duology eventually. These authors co-wrote a different series that was a duology, and it really feels to me like the story will be wrapped up by book 2. Okay, basic plot. Dominic and Ellery are both students at a magic academy in Alderland, which is sort of the capital of the world they live in. Alderland is part of Summer's territory, literally meaning the season summer. And these magicians that are being trained to fight against Winter, which has its own land, but is attacking the summer part of the world. So they are technically the seasons, but they also are physical manifestations where they can create like winter beasts. They're called winter ghasts and things like that. And they attack the towns and stuff around Alderland. So in school, Dominic is kind of the lower end of his class. He's actually very smart, but he just doesn't try. He has a reputation of kind of just being lazy and not showing up for class. And Ellery is top of the class. She's the one everyone knows is going to be amazing someday. And essentially when they get to adulthood, they all test to be wielders of living wands. They're very, very powerful wands. There's not a ton of them, so not every magician gets a living wand. And the wands themselves have their own sort of personality and abilities, and they kind of are self-aware themselves, the wands. It's sort of like a watered-down version. If you picture the dragons from Fourth Wing of how they choose their rider, and sometimes they decide they don't like their rider and will just let their rider die. It's kind of like that, but with wands. So not all wands are kind to their wielders and will burn them out, will kill them, all that kind of stuff. So having a living wand, while amazing and what everyone strives for, can also be very dangerous. There's a living wand called Valmordian, which is sort of the leader of the wands. And being the magician that gets to wield Valmordian, it both makes you the chosen one, but also likely going to kill you. And anytime Valmordian sort of comes out of its encasement and picks a new wielder, that usually means that the winter scourge is particularly bad and they have to wipe them out. There's a prophecy involved. And of course, Valmordian does thaw and chooses one of those two people, Dominic or Ellery. You're going to have to read it to find out. This world is also set in sort of like I kind of picture like a 1950s sort of era. So they have movies, they have cars, they have certain things like that. They don't have technology like cell phones or televisions or things like that though. So I like that it read like a very sort of traditional fantasy novel, but they have a little bit more technology than typical fantasy books have. I actually read this book really fast. It's about 420 pages, so it's a decently sized book, and I did read this book in just a couple days. Partly I was trying to read it quickly so I could do this review before it came out, but honestly, I had a hard time putting it down. I thought it was really entertaining. I liked both of the main characters a lot. I think that the authors didn't do sort of the typical thing with these characters. Mostly, I think the pacing of this book was excellent. Like I said, I think it's going to be a duology, and there is a lot of story to tell, but I feel like they got you all the information you needed. They kept the plot going forward. They still developed the characters really well. And so in this 420-page book, a lot of stuff happens. Not only do you have them in school, you have the wands choosing them. There's a traitor in the midst of the summer magic wielders they have to find out. There's prophecy pieces being given to them they have to figure out. There's this cataclysmic event they're working towards that they have to stop before it happens. At no point did I feel like the book was moving slowly or that we were kind of just needed to move forward. Like, it really clipped along. And I love on dual POV books when there are two authors, because the writing for both of them, the way they think, the way they handle stuff feels so different, like it's two different people as opposed to one author trying to write two different characters. I love when authors work together and write together. I never have been annoyed by that. I always feel like it works out really well. I thought the magic system was really awesome. You read a lot of books with wand-based magic, I feel like, but it's always very, I don't know, it's kind of like Harry Potter where they just got this thing to sort of funnel their magic and that's it. But because this one, the wands themselves are sort of aware and have their own personalities, it just made it so much more interesting. Because at no point did you feel like there was this deep bond necessarily between any of the wielders and their wands. You always felt like the wands were just barely dealing with the wielders. And at any moment they were going to say, you know what? I'm gonna burn you in a blaze of glory, and I'm gonna find somebody else to wield me. So the stakes felt very high with a lot of these wands. They're not necessarily your friends. I liked how different all the wands are. They made it really interesting. There's one character, Hannah, whose wand has like eyeballs on it. So when the wand is sort of watching what's going around it, it literally opens its eyes and sort of stares down people. There's a winter wand, so it sort of looks like that, where it's spiky. Valmortian has thorns on it, so when he holds the wand, if he doesn't hold it right, he gets stabbed by the wand. I loved it. I thought it was really cool. And I love that not all magic users got wands. So the stakes for them in school, for them trying to prove themselves, were really high. It had just the right amount of sort of political part of it as well, where Ellery and Dominic have to be perceived by the public in a certain way versus what they're actually doing and trying to accomplish. And so I thought that was interesting, how they sort of laid out that part of it as well within the Magician's Council, essentially. It is a young adult novel. I think it is a pretty solid, like mid-level young adult. It does not read lower YA. It does not read upper YA. I could definitely give this to anybody between the ages of 12 and, I mean, I'm 42, and I think any of that age will be very entertained by it. I think there might be a few F-bombs dropped in here if I'm remembering correctly, but besides that, it's fully YA. Overall, I really enjoyed the book a lot. I gave it 4 stars. It didn't get 5 stars because it wasn't a perfect book, but it was still really, really good, and I definitely recommend it. I think you could buddy read this with your teenager if you wanted to do that, and it really made me want to read these authors' other series, which I think is called All of Us Villains. Yes, All of Us Villains and All of Our Demise. I have one of those books up there, but it definitely bumped it up my TBR because I really like the way they write. So again, A Fate So Cold comes out November 4th. I believe one of the special edition book boxes is doing it as their December book. Don't quote me on that. If you've read A Fate So Cold already, or you read these authors' other series, I'd love to know what you think. Have an awesome day, everyone. Bye.